Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
This mayor has now lost the moral authority to govern.
The mayor of Surrey charged with public mischief. Now some city councillors are asking Doug Mccallum to step down. Also,
I can't imagine what it's like to be here at 4 in the morning, but that's what the shift work is like right now.
the race to rebuild the Coquihalla Highway. A first-hand look at the damage done and the work underway. And
I like this one.
Looking to cut down your own Christmas tree this year? Where to get the job done and the permit you need to have.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Anita is away tonight. We begin with a developing story. Surrey's Mayor Doug Mccallum has been charged with 1 count of public mischief. The CBC's Zara Premji joins us live in studio tonight. Zara, what do we know about this charge so far?
Isabel, this all comes 3.5 months after Mayor Doug Mccallum filed a police complaint. It involved an exchange with the group Keep the RCMP in Surrey. At the time, Mccallum said he was verbally assaulted and his foot run over in a grocery store parking lot. He says at the time he drove himself to hospital. Today, he's being charged with public mischief. But prosecutors aren't giving any more details or confirming if it's tied to the exchange outside the grocery store. Public mischief involves falsely reporting crimes to a police officer. In a response to the charge, Mccallum released a one-line statement. "We are in the middle of changing from RCMP to Surrey Police Service, and as this matter is before the courts, I will not be making any comment." Now, tensions have been high between Mccallum and opponents of his plan to replace the Surrey RCMP with an independent police force. City Councillor Brenda Locke, who is running for mayor in the upcoming October municipal election, says he should resign.
I'm extraordinarily disappointed. I'm disappointed for the residents of our city, but I think it's a clear indication this mayor has now lost the moral authority to govern not only the city, but he's lost the moral authority to govern the Surrey Police Service. He needs to step down. He needs to resign.
What's the reaction, Zara, from the new police service Mccallum has brought in to replace the RCMP?
Right, that police board released a statement today saying the mischief charge does not change Mccallum's role as chair of the Surrey Police Board as long as he's mayor. And, well, it's a little out of their hands because the BC Police Act requires the city's mayor to sit as chair of the police board. It adds the Surrey Police Service will continue to move forward to become the city's force. We've also learned Mccallum has hired high-profile defense lawyer Richard Peck to represent him. Now, Peck was the lead counsel for the man acquitted in the Air India bombings. He was also on Meng Wanzhou's defense team. Mccallum's first court appearance is January 25th. Isabelle.
Thanks, Zara. The province says it will have the Coquihalla Highway open to single-lane traffic by early January. The highway is the main transportation route between the Lower Mainland and the interior. It was damaged in 20 places during catastrophic flooding last month. Our Brady Strachan got a close-up look at some of the worst-hit areas and the repairs underway.
The incredible flood damage to bridges and roadways is being met by a round-the-clock push to build the Coquihalla Highway up again by early January.
This is the response phase, so the priority right now is just to get the economy and the trucks moving again.
Crews are working on 20 sections of the highway between the cities of Hope and Merritt. There are more than a dozen sections of road and 7 damaged bridges.
This is one of the hardest hit areas along the highway. It's the Bottle Top Bridge area. 3 sections of the bridge were washed away in the flooding. Floodwaters carved away all of this area that we're standing on now, washed away the entire lanes of this bridge, and then also that lane there. You can see they've put up a temporary fix so that traffic can now cross the bridge. And in January, when they open the highway up, it'll be driving on this temporary section of the highway here.
The province says upwards of 200 people are working day and night. BC's Transportation Minister says reopening the highway is a top priority.
All of the contractors, all of the workers, The unions, the companies restoring the Coquihalla deserve everybody's thanks in British Columbia, and this is important for the country as well because this is our main commercial transportation route that makes sure that goods get to the country.
The January reopening will be for commercial traffic only, and in many spots there will be only one lane open. Work to restore the Coquihalla to how it was before the floods could take years. Brady Strachan, CBC News on the Coquihalla Highway in British Columbia.
In recent weeks, authorities have been keeping a closer eye on the heavier traffic on Highway 3. And despite winding roads and heavier traffic, officials say 116 speeding tickets have been issued to drivers. Here's a recent example happening on a narrow stretch between Princeton and Merritt. You can see the truck on the left speeding up. It's crossed a double yellow line and tries to force its way back over, but then swerves back out to pass more vehicles around the bend. The driver who shot this footage tells CBC his vehicle was nearly pushed in the ditch.
It kind of disgusts a lot of us, and you know, that's how accidents happen, road closures happen, you know, people can lose a life doing that, and it's way too close to Christmas for any of that to happen.
Beckett tells us there was no cell service in the area, and truck drivers who witnessed it had to use their radios to report the driver, and said officers came and stopped the reckless driver soon after. Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now, and another storm is upon us. You're in the North Shore where there is a mix of rain and snow there. What's the latest, Johanna?
Yeah, Isabelle, I'm basically standing on the rain-snow line, and we're about 300 meters above sea level. So anything higher is getting pummeled with snow as we speak, but winds will be a big story for everyone. And the storm really is just getting started across the south coast tonight. We've been seeing snow mixed with rain, even across parts of Metro Vancouver. But as we head into the overnight and that cold front approaches us, winds are going to be the big story. In fact, BC Ferries already preemptively canceling a number of ferry crossings from the Lower Mainland over towards both ends of Vancouver Island and up towards the Sunshine Coast. Take a look. I think I may have lost you. I might have lost you, but I'll keep going anyway. The cold front will track down through the overnight. I think I've got a picture to show you of the cold front that is going to be sparking up those big winds through the overnight and through the early morning hours. Rain is also going to be a big part of the story. I'll take you through all the warnings and watches because we have a lot of them across the south coast. By tomorrow morning, we could be looking at upwards of 70 centimeters for parts of our local mountains. It's a big powder day, but we have to get through a big storm night first, Isabelle, and I'll time it all out for you coming up and see if I can hear you coming up too.
Okay, thanks, Joe. BC's agriculture minister toured flood-ravaged farmlands in Abbotsford today.
The loss that has been felt is absolutely profound, and the best way to see that is to be on the ground with the farmers.
Lana Popham surveyed the devastation with her federal counterpart, Marie-Claude Bibeau. The minister says she was moved to tears by what she saw. And she emphasized the greater urgency to collaborate with the federal government. They say conversations are underway to identify areas where farmers will need the most help. And Abbotsford has lifted the evacuation order for the remaining parts of Sumas Prairie. Mayor Henry Braun rescinded the order for properties in the Lake Bottom area. But this does not apply to a few homes north of Sumas River. He says the city is working on a plan, and in the meantime, the majority of people can return home, though there's a lot of work ahead of all of residents.
While there is still work taking place, we ask people to respect road closures in place to ensure their safety. Additionally, yesterday we were able to remove the do not drink advisory for water service on Sumas Prairie. However, a boil water advisory still remains in place as we flush out the system.
The mayor says the road to recovery will be long, and the city is also facing a $1 billion bill to rebuild 2 key dikes. And he stressed they will need a lot of support from the province to rebuild. Now, if you had plans to travel within the province this holiday season, you may need to think again. BC has limited travel on Highway 3 and 99 to essential purposes only until at least the new year. As Jessica Chung explains, the restrictions are keeping some families from celebrating the holiday together.
It's just going to be me here if I'm get stuck here.
Suman Kumar lives alone in a one-bedroom apartment in Prince George, working as an instructor at a college in Coquihalla just down the road. But her husband and 2 kids, they live a 9-hour drive away in Surrey, and her holiday plans are in trouble.
So that's the only time I get to go meet my family. It's been 4 years since I've been away like this. We don't have a lot of relatives. We don't have no relatives in this part of Canada. So it's just us and the family.
Work on the Coquihalla is slated to finish at the beginning of January, ahead of schedule. But until that happens, the province says Highway 3 and 99 are limited to essential travel only due to safety precautions, and checkpoints are in place.
I would advise leisure travel to not happen. With upwards of about 3,000 trucks a day now on that highway, with its steep grades and tight curves, it would be dangerous to mix leisure passenger traffic in with convoys of trucks.
The province says it's working to make alternative forms of travel available by increasing air travel options from Vancouver and Abbotsford airports into the interior and allowing inner-city buses to take passengers along Highway 3.
We know, especially in a year like this one, people want to see their loved ones this holiday season, and we're doing what we can to support you.
But for many like Kumar, the travel alternatives like bus or plane are just too expensive. But she's not playing the blame game.
I don't blame the government officials. They're doing their part and they're doing for the safety of everyone. But if that could be done in a way that is possible to meet everyone's needs, I would just appreciate that.
Looking at all the options ahead of potential holiday travel. Jessica Chung, CBC News, Vancouver.
You can put your glass recycling back out for pickup starting Monday, as long as you live in the South Coast or on Vancouver Island. The service returns Monday for those regions, but is still on pause elsewhere around the province. Recycle BC says collection was on hold because of flood-related delays and damage. People are reminded that glass must be emptied, rinsed, and separated from other recyclables. Styrofoam collection is still paused because transportation and storage is limited. The Insurance Bureau of Canada calls the recent flooding the most costly severe weather event in BC's history. It estimates insured damage costs will run to about $450 million. But that doesn't account for all of it. Much of the damage happened in high flood risk areas where flood insurance was not available. By comparison, insured damage from the summer's wildfires is estimated at about $155 million. If you're feeling nostalgic for the 2010 Olympics, you might have something to look forward to. The possibility of a 2030 Winter Games bid is taking shape with hopefuls from Vancouver, Whistler, and several First Nations. The Lil'wat, Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations entered a partnership with the 2 municipalities. Officials say this would be the first time an Indigenous-led initiative seeks to host the Olympics.
The difference between the 2010 was we were an invitee at that time, and today we are a big part of the exploratory group to consider a bid for the 2030 Olympics.
The northern Japanese city of Sapporo is the current frontrunner to land the 2030 Games, but the International Olympic Committee still has not said when it will pick a host city. It's that time of year where bears begin tucking themselves in for the winter, but a warm fall coupled with summer drought means the bears are still awake and they're hungry. And as Janella Hamilton tells us, that could be a recipe for disaster.
Just today, I've had several calls for bears still active in the community.
Typically, black bears and grizzly bears begin their hibernation in November or December. But with the summer drought impacting crops, a warm fall, and plenty of trash to go around, many bears are staying awake longer in search of food for the winter.
They're attracted by garbage, unpicked fruit and fruit trees. Bears are pretty food motivated. They reach that level of habituation to non-native food sources very quickly.
And once a bear finds a high-calorie human food source, wildlife experts say rehabilitation is difficult.
When bears are being fed, although unintentionally, say, from an apple tree or from unsecured chickens, they're still being fed human source foods. And those specific bears will stay out much longer than the bears that are even near people but eating natural foods.
The BC Conservation Officer Service says 2021 was one of the worst years for human-bear conflicts in the East Kootenay region. 31 bears around Sparwood and Fernie had to be killed.
But the majority of cases were bears that had become habituated to human food sources and were showing levels of aggression towards people.
Gordon says having to kill an animal is not an easy decision or one officers take lightly.
It depends if the bear's acting aggressive towards people or if it's causing property destruction or if it's showing increased levels of habituation. It's not scared of people. When those individual factors are there, then we have to interfere.
Lamb says this year's spike illustrates the ever-present conflicts between humans and bears.
I think we need to start looking at more innovative and persistent solutions, such as, reducing these attractants right at the source.
The BC Conservation Officer Services say people who inadvertently leave food out will be issued an order to clean it up. Those who intentionally leave food out for bears will be ticketed under the BC Wildlife Act and will most likely be prosecuted in court. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
So it's the holidays, and what better way to get into a merry mood than cut down your own Christmas tree this year? Well, to do it legally, the first thing you should know is there is some red tape, and not the festive kind. You'll need to get a government permit, but it's relatively quick and free. Once that's in hand, the adventure begins. John Hernandez geared up for the job. Take a look.
So it's the holidays, and what better way to get into a merry mood than to cut down your own Christmas tree? Well, to do it legally, the first thing you should know is there's some red tape, and not the festive kind. You need to register for a permit on the BC government's website. It's quick, easy, and free. Print off the paperwork, and the adventure begins.
Before you take off on your Christmas adventure, make sure you have your tree cutting permit with you at all times. Some other useful items, a first aid kit, some rope, and the right tool for the job.
In BC, you can't just chop down a tree anywhere. Odds are you'll have to go on a bit of a trek. Trusty online maps from the province show you exactly where you can cut, depending on which region you live. For us, that meant a trip up the Sea to Sky Highway north of Vancouver.
Let's go.
Be prepared for a hike in.
We're here just outside of Squamish. This is the closest place you can come to if you live in Metro Vancouver to cut down your own tree. And if you do have a permit, you'll have to do it underneath power lines. That's because these areas are regularly cleared.
Head to high ground to get a good view of what's in the area. And don't be afraid to size up any potential candidates.
Before you start cutting, make sure you find the perfect tree for you. I like this one. Make sure it fits right on top of your car, and when you start cutting, make sure you do it right at the base. Nothing to it. Now, a lot of people might come out here with the preconceived idea that the trees out here are full and picturesque like you'd see in the movies, when in fact, a lot of them are actually quite sparse. But they're still beautiful because you cut it down yourself.
Safely secure the tree to the roof of your car, or even squeeze it inside if you can. Then you're ready to hit the road.
Steady as a rock. Well, she's all loaded up. Now it's time to head home, bust out the decorations, and sip some eggnog. John Hernandez, CBC News, Squamish.
John has found his new calling. Fleur de Ville Noël, Vancouver's free floral display, is back for a second year. Some of the city's florists team up with businesses to create 30 unique pop-up installations. The floral trail runs along Robson and Alberni streets, and the displays are all located outside. They will stay up until Monday. The toxic drug deaths continues to mount. Why men in the construction industry are especially vulnerable. We speak to a drug rehab program director who works with those workers. Next. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. It's a final resting place of more than a dozen former slaves. Now, an abandoned cemetery is on its way to being reclaimed. Located near Hamilton, Ontario, the site holds the graves of Black settlers who fled the U.S. Angelina King went to visit the site, along with a descendant of some of the people buried there.
Aileen Duncan has been researching her family's history since she was a teen, but up until a couple of weeks ago, she had never seen this important link, her great-great-grandfather's grave.
I was so emotional that I was speechless.
She has 3 direct family members buried here, but so far only 2 of the gravestones have been uncovered. She's anxiously waiting for Haldimand County to clean up the area and find more.
I'd like to see the stones resurrected. I like to see grass on the ground and benches.
Under the debris, the gravestones of freedom seekers who escaped slavery in the U.S. in the 1800s, using the Underground Railroad to find freedom in Canada. Famed slavery abolitionist Harriet Tubman led hundreds of them through that secret passage. One of her nieces was laid to rest here. Local historians say 10 others were buried at this cemetery, but believe there's more. So far, 7 gravestones have been uncovered, but while we were working on this story, we actually found an 8th. This here is Harriet Tubman's nephew through marriage. The cemetery is on private land and isn't easy to get to, but a group of volunteers and descendants has been advocating to make it accessible and restore it. Haldimand County is in the process of acquiring the land and has budgeted $100,000 to clean up the cemetery. Sometimes cemeteries are the only tangible evidence of Black settlements. That's why this local historian has been pushing for the preservation for years. She says Haldimand County is home to at least 6 other abandoned Black cemeteries.
This is a forgotten history. It's a story that should be told.
This is another stone that...
Starting with giving new life to this cemetery, which Duncan hopes will serve as a place of solitude, honor, and education.
I want the public to be able to come in here and see that this is part of Canadian history.
Angelina King, CBC News, Haldimand County.
Hard to comprehend and so very discouraging how the number of deaths from toxic illicit drugs keeps climbing in this province. Another month with another horrifying record. 201 deaths in October alone. BC declared a state of emergency in 2016, and over nearly 6 years, Chief Coroner Lisa Lapointe has brought us the distressing details documenting thousands of deaths from poison drugs.
I can say at this point that there is little good news to share. As you know, 2015 was the highest year ever for drug overdoses in BC, and then in 2016 the numbers started to increase alarmingly. We're all starting to realize that these deaths we're seeing represent the tip of the iceberg in terms of illicit drug dependency in BC. The majority of those dying are male, which we knew. The majority of those who die at home in a private residence, and the majority of those who die live in private residences. Fentanyl, we know, is leading this terrible public health crisis. The toxic, illicit drug supply continues to have a profound and tragic impact on the people of British Columbia.
Things have not changed, and I think what we need to recognize now is that we need fundamental shifts in practice.
We can't afford to wait.
We know for a fact that decades of criminalization has not worked. It has contributed to the shaming, marginalizing, and deaths of thousands of promising, caring, and much loved individuals. There are families suffering in every community, so much loss. Today we will lose 6 more people. Tomorrow we will lose 6 more people, and by Christmas we'll have lost another 40 or 50 members of our communities, and that is just not acceptable any longer.
It's a grim milestone. 2021 is now the deadliest year for illicit drug overdoses in BC, and construction workers are among the most heavily represented in the deadly crisis. For a deeper dive into the devastating impact on the industry, we're joined by Vicki Waldron, Executive Director of the Construction Industry Rehabilitation Plan. Thanks for coming on the show with us.
Thank you, Isabelle.
Now, Vicki, you've been working with construction workers struggling with substance use issues, and evidence shows us the construction industry is being impacted disproportionately. Can you tell us about what makes construction workers vulnerable to this specific crisis?
It's a complicated issue. It's not something that's simple and can kind of be laid out very, very easily, unfortunately, but there is a number of reasons. We have a largely male-dominated industry, and we know that this impacts men predominantly, this issue, and stigma is something that prevents people from coming forward and asking for help. We know that this is quite strong within construction as well, because it's a very macho industry, because we have this very male-dominated industry. People are less likely to come forward and ask for help as well.
And what about injuries? Does that play a role at all in this as well?
Yeah, for sure. We know that previously there has been an overprescribing of opioids. We know that. Now, this is to be expected, given that we are the construction sector and that it's a very physically demanding job that people do. But what comes with that is that with the injuries that people sustain, and of course the way that we work with injuries, where we treat injuries, is through opioid prescribing. The alternative is very long-term, months and months of physiotherapy perhaps, and the draw is very much to, rather than having that huge amount of time off work to do physiotherapy or whatever else it might take, it's easier to take the pill and get back to work and mask that pain and get back to work very quickly.
And the pandemic has also led to a spike in the number of overdose-related deaths. How are you hearing or seeing the impact of COVID-19 worsening the crisis in your industry?
I mean, it's had a devastating impact on the industry, on people in general, to be quite honest with you. If someone is struggling with substance use disorder, one of the things that we'd be recommending to them is not to use in isolation, to make sure that you're going out and using the consumption, the safe supervised consumption sites. Make sure that you're going out and in community. And of course, as soon as COVID hit, we gave the complete opposite advice, and that was stay home, stay alone, isolate, do not go out. Now, the other thing that's really had a dire impact, a devastating impact, is the contamination of the supply chain that we have, or the supply of drugs that there is. There is an extremely high concentration of fentanyl potency out there. Actually, as part of one of the initiatives that we've taken within construction is that we have partnered with other construction associations within British Columbia. And what we are proposing to government is that we provide naloxone kits to our members and their families to help address some of the issues that we're seeing.
All right, Vicki Waldron is the Executive Director of the Construction Industry Rehabilitation Plan. Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Turning to our latest COVID numbers, the province is recording 437 new cases today, including 10 cases of the Omicron variant. There have been 3 new deaths in the last 24 hours. 211 people are in hospital, and of those, 72 are in critical care. 86% of eligible people 5 and older in BC have received their first dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. And Canada is seeing yet another upward trend in COVID-19 cases. New modeling from the Public Health Agency of Canada predicts we could see a surge in the coming weeks. The country is grappling with another wave of the Delta strain and still gauging the effects of the new Omicron variant. Ashley Burke has more on what it could mean for your holiday plans.
You just got it? Oh, excellent.
Ahead of the holidays, the Prime Minister once again encouraging vaccination against COVID-19.
It means you get to be safer, and it means you get to keep everyone you love safer.
This time in the youngest age group, as Canada tries to contain the new Omicron variant. More than 80 confirmed cases so far.
I'm just urging extreme vigilance and caution because the Omicron variant could take over pretty fast.
New modeling today shows if the new variant takes a foothold, cases could quadruple in Canada next month.
There have been super spreading events with the Omicron variant from other countries.
Super spreading caused by large gatherings. Now Canadian health officials urging to keep your holiday gatherings small and only with vaccinated friends and family. Dr. New personally recommending 10 people or less.
I plan to also use ventilation to the max and have the windows open for a certain period of time, maybe on the hour, to also improve the circulation of air. So that's maybe a bit of a warning to my family members who are coming over.
A message echoed in the most populous province where cases are surging.
We do not want this holiday season to become a super spreading event.
As for travel, the government is urging people to stay in Canada.
Omicron should be a big red part of their radar screen. No, it should be flashing because things are happening very quickly outside of Canada.
The government isn't changing its travel advisories yet, but officials said that could change quickly.
The situation abroad is both risky and unstable. They should also know that returning to Canada will likely involve delays and hassle.
Despite all of that, Dr. Tam is urging the public not to panic about Omicron. She says that travelers coming into Canada with it are either asymptomatic or have mild symptoms so far, but does say that an increase in case counts could impact hospitals and ICUs. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
India says it has detected 25 cases of the Omicron variant, all showing mild symptoms. The country's health ministry says there's no immediate plan to roll out boosters.
Our emphatic view is also aligned with the same approach that let's complete the task of vaccinating every adult with 2 doses.
Only 54% of adults there have received 2 doses of the COVID-19 vaccines. The country is dealing with a large surplus of doses due to a big drop in demand. Daily new COVID-19 cases hovering around 10,000 for the past few weeks. India's population is nearly 1.4 billion people. Charges laid, the political fallout after Surrey's mayor is charged with public mischief. We speak to a political scientist about what the implications are for the mayor and what the mayor might do next. Stay with us.
It's been a day for celebration in Greater Vancouver. The region finally has a new mass transit system. And unlike any other system in Canada, this one is operated not by people, but by computers. Karen Webb reports.
BC's new light rail system couldn't just start up one morning, no bells, no whistles. For the government of British Columbia, it had to be ceremony. Plaques, politicians, and speeches. A series of pats on the back.
Today is just the first of a lot of exciting things that are part of a total package that means exciting things that will continue to happen not only in Greater Vancouver, but all of British Columbia.
And thank yous.
And in particular, to you ladies and gentlemen, we're going to pay for the system
and use it. You bring on the first Sky train at Waterfront Station here in Vancouver.
The first official train run began this morning. The technology was developed in Ontario, and a similar system has been built there. But this 22-kilometer run is unique. It is operated completely by a central computer system. No drivers, not even backup ones. The provincial government chose today to launch the new system because it is also the 10th anniversary of Bill Bennett's rise to power. Accordingly, it was Bennett front and center today, handshakes and hoopla, with only an occasional discouraging word.
Why don't you give us jobs instead of monuments to you, eh? Yeah, like the coal and this, a bunch of bullshit.
And there were a few discouraging problems with the trains. Often the automatic doors didn't work as well as they should. They wouldn't open, taking some people to destinations unplanned, stranding others completely until real live uncomputerized people would come with a key. The bugs must be shaken from the SkyTrain before Expo 86 opens 5 months from now. It's supposed to be a showcase attraction, and its real test will come when it goes into full-time operation in January. Until then, it won't face a morning rush hour. Just Christmas shoppers heading home into the sunset. Karen Webb, CBC News, Vancouver.
Here are some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
It's really important to be here on the ground to see the impact of this, the devastating floods firsthand. Hearing about it in theory in pictures is one thing. Seeing it firsthand on the ground is quite revealing.
For the first time, we get a close-up look at some of the worst hit areas on the Coquihalla Highway and the repairs being done. The province says it will reopen to single-lane traffic by early January. The highway is the main transportation route between the Lower Mainland and the interior. It was damaged in at least 20 places during catastrophic flooding last month.
The difference between the 2010 was we were an invitee at that time. And today we are a big part of the exploratory group to consider a bid for the 2030 Olympics.
Could Vancouver be home to the 2030 Winter Olympics? First Nations leaders and the mayors of Vancouver and Whistler announced a partnership to explore a bid. The Lil'wat, Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations say they would partner with both municipalities. Vancouver's Mayor Kennedy Stewart says it is the 4 First Nations who are leading the potential bid, not the 2 municipalities.
He's lost the moral authority to govern the Surrey Police Service. He needs to step down. He needs to resign.
Surrey Mayor Doug Mccallum has been charged with public mischief, and some city councillors want him to step aside. The BC Prosecution Service says the charge comes after Mccallum complained to the RCMP that he was verbally assaulted and his foot was run over by a car. The incident in September involved the group called Keep the RCMP in Surrey. Mccallum is scheduled in court near the end of January. And with the new charges the mayor is facing today, we're turning to a political scientist to tell us what this could mean for Doug Mccallum. Hamish Telford is an associate professor at the University of the Fraser Valley and joins us now from Abbotsford. Thanks for joining us, Hamish.
You're welcome, Isabelle.
What are the implications here, given Mccallum is the city's top elected official?
I think the implications are, does he have the moral authority to continue governing while these charges are hanging over him? Will he have the trust and confidence of the other members of council? Will he have the trust and confidence of the staff in City Hall? And importantly, of course, does the public still have confidence in him to continue as mayor? I think the most pressing issue immediately is council and City Hall. If he's lost their trust, I think that makes it impossible for him to carry on in this role. We'll have to see how the public opinion plays out over the coming days.
Well, of course, some opponents already consider him a controversial mayor. But what about voters? How might this influence public opinion of this mayor?
Doug Mccallum has proven to be quite a polarizing figure, and this issue of the Surrey police force has been a very polarizing issue. That's what's led him into these charges to begin with. I suspect we're going to see some further polarization as a result of those charges. The people who have opposed him and have opposed the Surrey police force, I think, are going to oppose him even more vociferously. And we'll see if he has his defenders. I suspect he will. I suspect there are voters out there who sent him to City Hall to shake things up. As somebody once famously said, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. And that's what he might be doing in the minds of some. So we'll see how many supporters he has out there in the coming days. I'm guessing he's going to dig in his heels and try and stay in position. I think there might be a better chance of getting him to step aside from as chair of the police board, that there's a potential or certainly an appearance of a conflict of interest with his role there. But he may try and hang on as mayor. And certainly if people in the public back him, some his supporters back him, then that will give him confidence to try and hang on. We'll see if there are buried deep within the BC Community Charter or the Local Government Act, if there are mechanisms that council could take to unseat him. Those tend to be very time consuming, and public opinion usually takes over before those kinds of mechanisms can play out.
So we'll have to wait and see, it looks like.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much. Hamish Telford is an associate professor of the University of the Fraser Valley. Misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech, and concerns it was spreading online, unabated online on Facebook and WhatsApp, where in India, employees are speaking out. That's next. And at 6:41, a live look at Cypress Mountain tonight. The lifts are going strong and people taking advantage of the fresh powder on the hill tonight. And there's more to come. Johanna Wagstaffe has all the details next.
It's Christmas in Vancouver, no snowflakes falling down. Won't all the cars be happy? The bike lanes go year round. It's Christmas in Vancouver, no need for tire chains. The heat from our hot yoga is fueling climate change. It's Christmas, Christmas, it's Christmas, Christmas, it's a very, very Vancouver Christmas. It's Christmas, Christmas, it's Christmas, Christmas, it's a very, very Vancouver Christmas. The mountains and the beaches, how they make children sing. And all they want this Christmas is affordable housing. The parents working overtime for presents round the tree. Something loud with parts that bang, ain't nothing come for free. Usually there's hockey to keep our spirits keen. Where are you, Trevor Linden? Where are the twins Sedin? It's Christmas, Christmas, it's Christmas, Christmas, it's a very, very Vancouver Christmas. It's Christmas, Christmas, it's Christmas, Christmas, it's a very, very Vancouver Christmas. So Christmas Coast. But wait for February when you call your Aunt Lois. Maybe she lives Calgary, the Peg, or Montreal. She'll talk of shovel driveways. You'll be cycling the seawall. It's Christmas, 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 Christmas. It's a Vancouver Christmas. It's a Vancouver Christmas. Christmas, Christmas. It is a Vancouver Christmas. It is Christmas. Christmas. It's a Vancouver Christmas. It is Christmas. 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 It's a Vancouver Christmas. 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 It's a Vancouver Christmas. It's a Vancouver Christmas.
Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with a look at the forecast, all bundled up. I hope you're feeling somewhat warm in the conditions.
Isabel, we're definitely going to need a hot drink after this. It's very cold and wintry and windy. It's feeling like storm weather. If we were on the East Coast, we'd be getting our storm chips ready, I think. It's the winds that are still to pick up. It's been switching back and forth between rain and snow here in North Van, sort of at the base of Grouse Mountain for the past hour. It's going to be a messy next 24 hours. Let me time it out for you with my sort of high resolution model. The purple here, that's the snow. Right now it's hanging around 300, 400 meters, and we're going to continue to see that snow pile up for the mountain passes. We've got snowfall warnings, as I mentioned, for the mountain passes both to our east and to our north, where we're starting to see things really accumulate on the sea to sky. Let's see if I can get you there. There we go. The rain moving through the overnight and continuing through Saturday. And as that cold front comes through, we're really going to see those winds pick up Saturday morning. But it's not just a Saturday morning event. It's going to be a windy Saturday right through to the afternoon hours for Metro Vancouver. Watch as I get you through to Sunday. We still have lingering showers out there, and watching that snow line closely Sunday into Monday. We might actually see some snow down and through Metro Vancouver behind that cold front. Take a look at the province, -1 out towards Williams Lake tomorrow. Everyone's seeing the winds. Prince George, you could see gusts up to 80 kilometers per hour tomorrow morning before things clear out. Cranbrook, you've got a couple centimeters through the overnight, couple more tomorrow. The mountain passes right through to Highway 3. All looking to see big accumulating snow. And Stewart Terrace, you've got accumulating snow up to 20 to 30 centimeters, all with this same cold front. So timing this out for Metro Vancouver, the steady rain will continue through to tomorrow morning. We're looking at about 60 millimeters, higher amounts up towards Howe Sound. Windy through most of Saturday, and in fact, as I'm speaking, the wind gusts I can hear just picking up around me. Sunday, we may see some sunny breaks after we get through the possibility of some morning snow, and again Monday morning, seeing some sunny breaks in between. And then notice the forecast for Monday and Tuesday, showery. We may see the breaks in the sun between. Getting into Wednesday, also watching the potential for snow. So it's definitely a wintry forecast. It's a La Nina year, Isabel, and it is feeling very La Nina indeed. But if anyone had plans to get out on the local mountains on Sunday, well, you made a good call. It's going to be some of the best snow we've seen in years, actually.
There you go. There's always a silver lining. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Perhaps India is one of the places where the very real consequences of false news can be felt the most. The country is Facebook's biggest market, and it's struggling to contain the spread of false information. Salima Shivji shows us those who have been affected and those who are trying to find a solution.
a country of more than 1.3 billion and a staggering number of smartphones in the hands of hundreds of millions. Potent tools armed with the ability to spread false information on Facebook and its ubiquitous messaging service, WhatsApp.
My father.
Pankaj Mishra has felt the pain firsthand. 2 years ago, he was one of hundreds of students protesting a fee hike at his university when he was targeted. This photo of the then 30-year-old on the protest line swiftly spread the lie that he was nearly twice that age and a Muslim, not a Hindu.
They were spreading the news deliberately because they wanted to defame our He movement.
Mishra sank into a depression for months. His friends would take turns escorting him to every single class to make sure he was safe.
It was traumatic, it was depressive, and I hope that nobody could feel or could face such situation again.
At this New Delhi data company, they're working towards that goal. They give intensive training sessions to help people spot fake news.
Social media being what it is, it becomes a huge problem to tackle misinformation. So the idea is to go to different universities, media houses, all of these places and sensitize people against misinformation.
But the onus is also on social media companies like Facebook. India, its biggest market by far. And trust in Facebook's ability to tackle disinformation is waning. Internal documents leaked this fall paint a picture of how the social media giant is flailing, struggling to stop the spread of false information and hate speech in this country.
One Facebook researcher testing the site's recommendation algorithms reported back. I've seen more images of dead people in the past 3 weeks than I've seen in my entire life. Another internal report a year later signaled that inflammatory content on Facebook was up 300%, according to the Wall Street Journal, just as violent religious riots hit the capital in February 2020 and left 53 people dead.
Checking infrastructure.
Last month, a top Facebook India official was hauled in front of a Delhi legislative committee looking at what fueled the deadly riots. He was grilled on the company's fact-checking methods.
But we have 10 fact-checking partners in India, and they cover 11 languages in the country. This is dedicated to India. Only 11 languages.
That's just half of India's 22 official languages.
There's not that much cross-flow between, let's say...
Govindraj Ethiraj is one of the 10 partners Facebook has hired to help.
Can a social media platform do more? Of course they can.
But he says the problem is more insidious, much larger than just one company, even a juggernaut like Facebook. Disinformation fueled by politics is highly organized in India and a constant.
So it always increases ahead of elections. But in India, there are elections happening all the time. So in that sense, it's a drip which is always a drip.
They can give us the correct facts.
The drip has become a downpour since the pandemic hit, pushing Boom's fact-checkers into overdrive.
In April, May 2020, everybody in the team was doing a COVID story.
Wow.
All trying hard to beat back the deluge of fake cures, doctored quotes, and wild theories. Exhausting and demoralizing work with more and more Indians online, where the fact-checks get far less play than the fake news that comes fast and furious. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Mumbai.
It was a classic back in 1961, but there's some criticism that West Side Story has not aged very well. But how does the remake stack up? Eli Glasner talks about the old and the new, coming up next.
I'm out at York Redoubt with Parks Canada's Greg Stroud.
Well, the Christmas bird count is an opportunity for everyone to get out and enjoy the day. That's the most important thing. It's an excuse to just get outdoors.
Don't know anything about birds? Not to worry, you'll learn.
I just saw a seagull. Does that count?
You did, but it's a herring gull. There is no such thing as a seagull.
I'm learning already.
This is the oldest citizen-based wildlife survey in the world. 122 years and counting.
All you have to do is go to the website Birds Canada, click on the Christmas bird count circle that's in your area. And then from there, what you can do is you can find out who the compiler is, contact that person, and that person will help you become a part of a Christmas bird count.
The count begins on Tuesday. Tip number 1, you'll need binoculars.
Your binoculars are an extension of your eyes. So you don't take your eyes off the boat, you're watching the boat, and you move your binoculars right up in front of your eyes without leaving.
Wow.
Okay, you see what happens?
Yes.
Knowing how to attract birds is important.
So all it is basically,
oh,
yeah, just making a.
Before long, the birds respond.
Oh, here they come. There's one over there, and there's one back here as well. Hear them? Chickadee-dee-dee.
With clipboard in hand, we begin our count.
There's 3 of them, and the golden crown kinglet, and there's 1.
Golden crown
kinglet.
Okay, now how do we know if when we continue walking that we didn't already count these guys?
Okay, so sometimes that can be an issue, but usually if you walk quite a distance and you see another group, then you can pretty much assume it's a new group. But a lot of birds stay here all year. So this Christmas bird count is really good for getting a snapshot of what's happening from year to year into wintertime. And we can use this to track all kinds of movements and changes in bird species and populations. There's a golden crown kinglet right up here. He's a little flitting bird.
The Christmas bird count begins next Tuesday and runs until January 5th. You choose just one day, and who knows? It just might make you a birder.
This one is straight ahead.
Yeah,
what is this little one?
That's the kinglet.
Okay.
And he's got a golden...
Colleen Jones, CBC News, York Redoubt.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Christmas with Corleone returns with a joyful collection of luminous candlelit carols and holiday favorites December 17th to 20th. Celebrate the season and get your tickets at corleone.org. And never miss a special programming series or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
60 years after the original was released, tonight, the remake of West Side Story opens in theaters across Canada. And in the new film, meaningful representation is key, not just for the authenticity of the story, but to honor the Latino community it speaks for. And as some of the movie stars told Eli Glasner, they are proud of getting it right this time.
When West Side Story first hit screens, the film about immigration and gangs pushed the boundaries of what musicals could say. The new version aims to improve on the original with a more authentic treatment of the Puerto Rican characters. A dramatic change for an industry that long treated Latino characters as a joke.
Lots of new housing with more space.
Lots of doors slamming in our face.
Even the original West Side Story had its faults. Take it from the actor who won an Oscar as Anita.
It is iconic, but it didn't address the social issues really almost at all, down to the point where we all had to wear ultra dark makeup because we were Puerto Rican. I'm Puerto Rican. You know, there's all kinds of colors. We are all colors.
They were afraid that the audience wouldn't get that she was Puerto Rican unless we painted her brown, literally painted her brown.
For this version, director Steven Spielberg cast as many Puerto Rican and Latino actors as possible, including Cuban-Canadian David Alvarez as the leader of the Sharks.
Tonight is about family. It makes me so happy that not only my parents get to see it, but just the whole entire Latin community who understand that struggle.
but appreciating that struggle could present a challenge for some viewers because Spielberg insisted on not providing subtitles, even though there's a significant portion of Spanish dialogue.
It's performed in a way where you don't need to know what is actually being said. All you gotta do is look at how it's being said.
Oye, Javi, ponle fuego, vamos!
And I think it's just beautiful that Steven Spielberg did that because it kind of shows a sign of respect to the Spanish language.
But at least...
Although Latino representation is increasing, Moreno says there's room for much more.
It's changed, and it hasn't changed anywhere near enough. I mean, the doors are still pretty well shut, or maybe they're ajar. That's not enough. That's not enough.
And the remake with award season buzz could open the doors wider still. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC News at 6. For news at any time, take a look at our website, cbc.ca/BC. Zara Premji joins you tonight for news at 11. Have a great one.